what is this life thing about? Like, what am I doing? Am I supposed to get a bigger house than my dad? Am I supposed to get more cars than, my neighbor? Like, what's this whole thing about? I always knew I was supposed to do like great things in life. I like since I was a kid, but I knew there was some information. It was some information that I needed. With anti-Semitism, there's so many different levels to it. Question, why is it there? It's a proof that the Jewish soul lives in a completely different reality than the rest of the world, right? We're living in the same space, but we're living in a completely different reality. Like, we're watching two different movies, right? On the same TV screen, right? And the closer we become, the more the universe is in this relaxed state, and the more that we're separate, the more that the everything around us becomes adverse.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
And welcome to the Jew Function. I'm Leo.
Hello, I'm Seth. Good to see you all again.
Good to see everyone again, indeed. I'm not sure what to say, except about the recent turn of events. It seems like every day you open the news, it's almost like you don't know what's going to happen, right? All right, this guy's. It's like you're rolling your dice in Vegas, right? It's like, all right, snake eyes. All right, the Americans are against us. All right, let's roll it again. Oh, now the Americans are our friends. Now the Norwegians are against us. Now, the Iranian president is down. Now this is like all kinds of the news. Just they keep getting crazier and crazier. I spoke to a friend of mine. He called me from the States. I think he lives in Canada now, or maybe, I don't know. And he's complaining about how crazy the world is becoming, and he's not sure what kind of world his daughter is growing into and what to do. And it seems to be like a convergence of all the terrible things that can happen. And it's now we're getting into election season in the US. And if you vote for one, it's terrible. You vote for the other, it's even worse. It's like this. There's almost no way out. Does it feel like there's no way out, Seth? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm reading. I think I told
relaxed. You look pretty
What?
relaxed. You look pretty relaxed.
I look relaxed. I'm a good actor. I told you I'm reading this book by Ray Dalio. I forget what he calls this one, but he's a big hedge fund guy. But what I'm interested in the book is that he, in order to manage his clients' money through uptimes and downtimes, he started studying history. Right. I think actually he had a come to Jesus moment. He had a tragedy in his family, and it caused him to start reflecting on everything, and now he has this kind of feeling about giving back. So anyway, he had his research team compile over the last, I think he went back several thousand years, but the book primarily focuses on like 500 years or so on all the empires. And it turns out that there's cycles. He calls something the small cycle, which I think is 70 to 80 years, and then there's a big cycle. The problem is that everybody in their life only really gets to experience all the phases of the cycle once, so people don't notice that it's a cycle. So why I'm saying it
sounds familiar,
because the good exactly. The good news is that at some point it'll be over and something new will be born. The bad news is we happen to be living in the time where it's all crumbling. There's something that we've actually talked about the last few times on our show, is that nobody, not Ray Dalio or anyone else, because they show these cycles. We happen to be talking about something that's above the whole system. Could you imagine that that the world could come to peace? Could you imagine that there could be an end to wars? Could you imagine that people could learn to get along? I mean, this is never on the table. This is like non-discussed in any of the places. There were people, there were, MLK people. I mean, you can go back to, there were biblical people, I think, but there were no we don't have anyone. I can't think of anyone like that now. But yeah, it's a very, very terrible time right now through normal human eyes.
It's funny you mentioned. By the way, funny you mentioned empires, because my friend, I didn't say it because I thought it would sound strange, but he was exactly latching on to that. All the empires, empires are rising or falling. They're coming together. It's like you're seeing the making.
All the signs. If you read his book, this Dalio book, I think it's the principle of, I don't remember. I'll remember. But if you look at the signs of the declining empire, it's like you could just like go down and check off what's happening in the U.S. between debt and what's happening culturally and what's happening with the family and what's happening with sexuality and all these different things. It's like it's not and my 20-year-old kid who's in university says like, don't the politicians read this? Don't the leaders of the countries understand? And I said they must. These guys all go to Ivy League schools. They must study the classics. They must study Rome and all the empires. And if that's the case, then everyone's just like playing their role. You take a George Soros kind of guy, or whoever the Rockefeller, whoever wants, I don't know who they are, but whoever the people are who are funding the decay. It's just everyone's playing a role, because if anyway you zoom out and these are all cycles anyway, right? If they're all cycles and they all have a certain amount of time, then you can't really even point finger at any person and say he's doing wrong, because he's just playing his role.
Look, I'll tell you, I think we saw it. I think there's only two ways things can pan out. One, if you want to look at why things are the way they are, why people behave the way they behave, you don't look at the person, you look at the soil in which they grew, right? You look at the environment, you look, if you plant something in toxic ground, it's going to grow bad. So there's no expectation of anything good coming out of that soil, because the soil right now is rotten. It's whatever it's produced, it's rotten everywhere. You see the crops of that soil everywhere, in politics, in corporations, in education, in trade, in politics, entertainment, right? Now, the other option is that someone gets an awakening. And that awakening, you also have there's usually two options there. Like everywhere, there's always two options, right? Either some tragedy in the family, like Dalio, like other people. It's not necessarily life-changing, but it may be eye-opening. Or you sort of like get this calling, this little voice inside of you, which I do believe that everybody gets that inner voice to knock on your door at least 3 times. You're
very generous in your beliefs, but okay.
Yeah, I'm generous, but I'm a generous guy. You know me. So I think our guest today it falls into this category of someone who heard that voice inside calling them. I don't know. We'll find out. I think it's a good time to introduce him, because he's an interesting guy. Our guests are always interesting, I have to say. I don't think one is more interesting than another. But when I read his bio, it's weird. It's almost like it doesn't add up. It's like this guy grew up in the Valley in LA, and he just regular parents. I think.
No, it adds up when you have a Jewish soul. It kind of pulls you out of. Well,
that's the thing. I don't know about his parental background. If you go by this qualification, right? I know his parents were insurance something, and his mother was was doing PhD studies at UCLA, but he, at a very young age, he had a knack for something. I don't know, like he went to school, dropped out, started entertainment companies, representing hip hop artists, I think. Then he was in film production. Basically, he was in entertainment, and he sold all his interests. And then he even ran for Congress there in LA, I think. But eventually he went back. He went back home, and his parents introduced him to a rabbi for some reason. We'll ask him about that as well. And he was intrigued. And after that, he studied, and he went to. I said returned from Israel. I don't know why he went to Israel. We'll ask him that as well. And then he got into his studies very seriously, and he eventually became an ordained rabbi. And he's a rabbi. He's a very interesting guy. and I saw some of the videos where he spoke, and I want us to try and feel what compelled this person, who could have been just a Hollywood mogul, to drop everything and look for something in the Torah. I want to hear about that, and I want to hear what he thinks about the events post the October 7th and what we need to do to bring Jews together. So a few small questions and we'll let him go. So with that, please welcome Rabbi Mordechai Yosef ben Avraham.
Shalom, shalom. Happy to be here.
Hi, shalom. Thanks for joining.
Shalom indeed. So, Rabbi, how do you go? I'm sure you get that all the time. I saw a few places where you were asked about that, but I'm sorry, I have to ask. It's like, it's like what I'm especially interested in what we spoke about earlier, like what compelled you? What was it that called you? I mean, people make life different. They transition in life. They go from this to that all the time, right? We always try to find, as we call it, maximum pleasure, minimum pain. We always try to find, where will I get more pleasure, right? If I'll get more pleasure just staying like this, leaning on my hand like that, I'll stay like that forever. But if I think I'll get more pleasure changing positions, then I'll change. So there's no question people change in search of better fulfillments. But this is not a usual change. This is more of a spiritual change. So what happened? Maybe give us a little open a window into that.
First of all, I just want to say thanks for just having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I think there's a combination of a few things, because I've had a lot of time to think about it. I think one thing is being African American in the United States and not having really like a defined spiritual system, right? A lot of African Americans, were, introduced to Christianity when they were on plantations, when they came here. Time evolved, some African Americans got into Islam. And so I think that spiritual curiosity, I mean, you have Black people that are Buddhists, you have all types of different types of things. There's no like one particular set ideas that maybe you could see in other groups, more predominantly. And so I think that energy of spiritual curiosity is something that I think was a part of the culture. And I think my parents, have a lot of that themselves. They grew up in like very Christian homes, but when they got into college, they got into Sufism, right? Which is like kind of like a mystical expression of Islam, right? So we pretty much grew up like, like me defining myself. If you would ask me like then, I would have said like, okay, I'm Muslim. That's what I grew up in. But my parents weren't denominational in that way. They had a very like kind of like spiritual outlook. They met people that influenced them, like when they were in college, and my parents were really into like things like therapy and working on yourself and overcoming internal stuff. And they always talked about
very Jewish.
Our family's very Jewish. My younger sister converted too as well. So it's
really?
like, yeah. So she converted. But she's also a professor, but she's more on the conservative side of the world, which is great. Which is great. Her and her husband, and her kid. So anyway, so I grew up. And our parents were like very open-minded, like very much working on yourself, on this, these types of things. And so what happened is that I got introduced to the Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles. And I met this girl randomly, Marcy. It's a whole random story. This girl disappeared from my life, never saw her again after like a few times, but she led me to come to the Kabbalah Center. And I was just trying to get to know her. I was just like at a business conference, this girl was like cute, big curly, red hair, the whole thing. And I just was trying to get to know her. And she was like, we went out, a group of us were supposed to go out and have like drinks. It's like we met at a business conference type of a thing. And we were supposed to have drinks, and no one else showed up but just me and her. So we just ended up talking, and she's like wearing one of these like red strings. And she's like, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing a red string. And I was just like, not really, you know, and 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 and, uh, and so she started telling me about this whole like Kabbalah Center thing, whatever. And I remember reading like a press release about Madonna and her involvement in it, whatever. So I kind of like had in my head, it was like Jewish Scientology, like type of thing. And so anyways, so I went up to an intro lecture with her. She's like, yeah. I was like, I would love to come up there. So I tell her, I was like, I'd love to come up there. So I went up there, I met her up there, and I went to an introduction lecture there. And this is in like 2003. And I went to an introduction lecture there, and I'm telling you, it just blew me away. Like I just, the whole thinking process and the whole thing, I was just like, you know what? Like, I've been waiting my whole life to hear this, because I always knew I was supposed to do like great things in life. I like since I was a kid, but I knew there was some information. It was some information that I needed that I wasn't, you know, exposed to. Just something, I think it was subconscious. It wasn't like I was consciously out looking for things. I quantified life from like business success. You know, that's the way I looked at it. So anyway, so I went to the Kabbalah Center. I had this amazing experience at the intro lecture, and that ended up being like the next 7 years of my life. And my family ended up coming. My mom actually was working for the Kabbalah Center when she was a professor. She was like doing different, helping them with different, how to organize their curriculum, stuff like this. So my family got involved. Actually how my sister also got involved in Judaism as well. So I was there with Madonna and all the celebrities and all that type of thing. But it's a significant thing. Like you see how God builds you, you know, you see how God builds you step by step. For me, I needed to see all these celebrities there, right? Because it was another, you know, omission, because I grew up in Calabazas, pretty much, like Calabasas, West Hills, which is the San Fernando Valley. And, you know, it's a very like wealthy area. A lot of, you know, people were successful, these type of things. They referred to the people in Calabasas as new money and the people in Beverly Hills as old money, right? So we were like, our parents are like the first ones. So everyone's like overdoing it, right? If you went to my high school, if you saw my high school prom, you would see like limos, this, expensive dresses, tuxedos, the whole thing, because everyone's like trying to live this like life. But the point is, a lot of kids that I went to school with also were in drug rehab. And I saw a lot of like, you know, unfulfillment, you know, and a lot of lack, right? And it was just something that was in your mind. You didn't think so much about it. It was just something in your mind. And as I got older, you know, and I went to the Kabbalah Center, I saw all these celebrities there as well. And so it was this kind of this like reaffirmation, like Hashem speaking to me and showing me that the whole American dream, right? That, you know, especially being a Black American, right? You know, we were like always trying to, you know, move up and, you know, be in the right places and types of things. But then I'm living in that reality. You know, I'm living amongst kids whose parents are multimillionaires and families and communities and these types of things. And you see that, you know, the kids are suffering just as much as cousins that I had that weren't as fortunate as me and my siblings, right? And when I went to the Kabbalah Center, I'm like working in the entertainment business, you know, like mostly like from a finance, you know, creative finance. It's a whole story. I'm not going to bore you with my business background, but, you know, like I started an internet company when I was really young, and then that kind of got me into like finance and this. And also I worked for my dad since I was like 8 years old. You know, he had an insurance company. But the point is saying that I saw these people that I was looking up to in the entertainment business at this place called the Kabbalah Center, trying to get what they were calling light, you know, energy, something, meaning, you know, understanding. And I think that was really what opened up the whole sugya, you know, just opened up the whole conversation of, you know, what is this life thing about? Like, what am I doing? Am I supposed to get a bigger house than my dad? Am I supposed to get more cars than, you know, my neighbor? Like, what's this whole thing about? And I think because I grew up in that way, the temptation for the materialism and success, you know, in that way wasn't as alluring as it would have been if maybe I came from a different environment. And so once you're in that space and you're trying to figure out, well, if that's not what life is, and that doesn't really make people happy, well, what does? And then I stumble upon this place called the Kabbalah Center, and then they have all the answers, you know, at least, you know, for at that time of my life, you know, having no background. So that, I think that's how I started on the yellow brick road.
What about the celebrities? Was this an aha moment for you that even they weren't happy, that they were still looking?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That was a clincher. That was a clincher that non-Jewish celebrities at that were in the Kabbalah Center. It wasn't like they're like, oh, they're trying to be Baal Tshuva and reclaim the religion. They were like, no, like we went everywhere. We did, Taoism, Buddhism, Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, all these things. We did meditations, this, drugs, all this, and they were there on Shabbat. They were there. Like, I mean, I remember when I started to pray in the morning, Shachrit prayer, like Aston Kruger was there every morning wrapping tefillin. You know what I mean? Like, for what? And so when you see that and you're just like, these guys have millions, and they're in the newspaper every day, it really makes you question life. And then we came to Israel in 2004. I came with the Kabbalah Center in, I think it could have been 2003, but I think it was 2004. We came to Israel for Rosh Hashanah. And so we came, and then during the intermediary days, we went to holy sites. And so this was the first time I was out of America. Right. And so I'm there, I'm in the north of Israel. Like the first time I ever did a mikvah was in the Arizal's mikvah. I'm going to Rabbi Shimon, this, all these like, and I'm just like on fire. I wanted to convert at that moment. Yeah, at that moment, I was ready I was like, this is it, I'm done. And everyone's like, calm down, you're just on a high right now, this, blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't until 10 years later that I actually did a gerus. I went through I finished my conversion in 2013.
Why go to Or Sameach and become an Orthodox guy? Why not just remain secular, but take on all of the, pray 3 times a day, use the mikvah, do all the Kabbalah Center rituals? Like, why become an Orthodox Jew?
Yeah, why become a Jew in general? It's not like it improves your status. I mean, it's not the best, it's not the best club to be in this world.
Well, the thing is, the Kabbalah Center, gets a lot of criticism, and I can't speak for other people's experiences and what they experienced or what happened or whatever. I can just speak for myself. And I can say that, for me, and again, I think a lot of it was preparation to my parents and coming from a very loving and supporting home and having a lot of confidence in that way. But, becoming Jewish, for me, and one of the things that really got me at first, I'll just say this. So when I was at the Kabbalah Center, I learned about this idea that there's different levels to the soul. There's 5 parts to the soul. And there's, and because of the responsibility that Israel has in the world, that the structure of the soul is different than other nations, right? But within the other nations, some people have a soul that's similar to the souls of Israel, right? And not to go into so much detail, but there's 5 levels to it, the whole thing. So at that time,
we studied this stuff, so we love it.
You
can go into all the details you want, actually. We love this stuff.
Okay, fair enough. So there's this idea that, everyone has a nefesh. But then there's 5 parts of the soul. The lowest part of the soul is a nefesh. Then you have this idea of a ruach and a neshama and a chay and akida, these levels. And so when a person, this is what I understood at the time, right? So when a person does a proper bris milah, meaning they do a proper circumcision, and they have intentions to keep all the laws of the Torah through an obligation, God there's two different perspectives on it. One perspective is they receive these additional levels, and another perspective is they reveal these levels that already were within them, right? So for me, I'm looking at it like, I'm like, what, 22, 23 years old at the time, and I'm like, wait, so you're saying I could get a higher level of a soul? That's it. I was just like, this is like, and not only that, you get the same soul of a Rabbi Akiva, the Arizal, all these amazing people, and you just like, I was like, none of my friends can even imagine such an idea, So that was kind of like the beginning of me wanting to go on this level. But also, I'll say, the Rav Berg there, who took a lot of criticism, he was put in harem, there's a lot of stuff, I heard about the whole story. The way I was introduced to Judaism through him was less about the word Jewish and more about the obligation of a person who keeps the Torah with the rest of humanity, right? Because they didn't use a lot of those languages there because they were appealing to such a bigger audience. So what the beauty of what he showed me was that he showed me this world. He like basically took off the cover, like he took off the he removed the mechitza, right?
Veil, yeah.
And he showed this world where all these people were suffering, right? Like all these people were suffering and this and everyone's, and I related to that world. I saw that world. And even the more I learned, I even accepted how empty I was, you know? But then at the same time, there was a solution to it, right? And that solution had a lot to do with actions, with sharing and things like unconditional love and all these different dynamics. And so when I was introduced to Judaism, it was more about a responsibility, right? It was more about like, okay, you want to join this nation? We wake up. I remember one time when I was first, learning about tefillah, right? I remember one time I was, I had a meeting. I had a meeting with his teacher. His name is Yehuda Sior, right? He lives up north. Like I'm still in contact with him. We ran into each other after like 15 years. Randomly, I was up in a spot for Shabbat, and he's walking down the street. I'm walking down the street. I'm like, Yehuda, this whole thing. So that's the whole story. But the point is, he said something to me that was so profound, and I told him this too. I was I was at Shabbat by the Kabbalah Center, not keeping Shabbat, but like there, doing stuff. They have a very like callback type of minyan type of thing. And so the next day, I had a meeting with Yehuda, right? Yehuda Sior, right? Now Yehuda Sior. And he said to me, he said, hey, he said, how was Shabbat? And I was like, oh man, it was amazing. It was great. This whole thing. And he said, but I didn't see you. I didn't see you at the prayers in the morning. Right? I didn't see you at the prayers in the morning. And I was like, yeah, I know. He said, you're probably like still like on a high from Shabbat. You probably were feeling great. This is Sunday morning, right? He said, you're probably still on a high. And I was like, yeah. He said, well, the difference is between a person who goes, and they don't get people into Judaism. That's not their thing. But I had a relationship, which is a whole nother aspect of the story I'm like skipping over. But he said to me, he says, you know what? When a Jew prays in the morning, we're not praying for ourselves. It's not like I wake up in the morning and it's like, hey, you know what? I feel great. I don't need to pray. He says, no, when you pray in the morning, you're being a channel of light for the whole world. He said, there's people in the world that are counting on you to bring this light down and to be a vessel to disseminate it. He said, so it's not about you and how good you feel or don't feel. It's about you having a responsibility. And so that was kind of like how I was introduced to what it was to keep the mitzvah, to connect to the Torah, and these type of things. That I was like almost like a spiritual warrior, for God. And I had this book, and I had these laws, and I had these things, and I'm in this whole thing. And it wasn't until later that I really learned about the Jewish community, right? Because I was just in a small box in the Kabbalah Center, right? And then I left eventually, like around like 2009-ish. And then I left eventually, and then I went into the Orthodox world because I had friends that were also by the Kabbalah Center that grew up there, but they were becoming more Baal Tshuva by Isher Torah and other outreach organizations. So they invited me to come to some of these things. I was like, nah, I don't want to go. I'm good. I don't want to go. And then one time I had a friend, Yosef. He came to my apartment and was like, bro, I was like in the shiur and I turned around and there was this black guy back there. And I was like, why isn't Mordechai here? I was like, there's a black guy there? And he's like, yeah, man, he was cool too, blah, blah, blah. So he took me to some Isher Torah lectures in Los Angeles. And, outreach, I can't speak for the whole country, but in LA, they use a lot of Kabbalah stuff, to get the kids into it. And so it was a lot of the same language, same ideas, but it was all young people and young professionals and a lot of girls, And so that was the beginning of me transferring into the Jewish community.
I don't think anyone else is doing what we're doing, and and that's exactly it. Nobody can comprehend what we're talking about. Who would even say that anti-Semites have anything valuable to say without saying we're anti-Semitic or we're self-hating Jews? But there's something that everybody's missing in this whole picture, and the reason why the solution is so close is because we're not waiting for anyone else to change. We're not waiting for the laws to be enacted. We're not waiting for a new politician to get elected. The answer is way closer than everybody thinks.
Like us, hit the bell thing on the YouTube so you can get a notification when a new episode is up. This is the Jew Function, and let's get back to our guest.
What, by the way, I got many questions also, so I don't know if we'll be able to solve it all here, but because I want to like bring this, like make a laser out of this channel of light that we're talking about, but I want to build it. When you, in 2009, what more were you looking for that, like, it's clear you had some Jewish soul, that's like, it's obvious. I mean, it's not just, there's like a 1 in a billion million, I don't know how many 100 million kind of guy who just like, you know, it just pulls him out of all that. But what was the ceiling that you hit that in 2009 you needed to, you know, go somewhere, you know, you need to find something else somewhere else?
Well, it was
I'm more interested not in the organizations, but in your path. Like, what is it that your soul was still didn't fill your soul?
Well, the thing is I wanted to have a family where I could live this way with a wife, with with children. And so I knew that the only way for me to do that was to be able to convert, to try to find a girl, because I was already at the Kabbalah Center for like several years. I was learning this, all these things. And so Yehuda Berg, actually, still a very good friend of mine, he said to me one day, he's the first person to introduce it. He's like, bro, you got a Jewish soul. I'm like, what are you talking about, Jewish soul? What do you mean? You guys don't talk about anything Jewish. What do you mean Jewish soul? He said, you got it. My dad said it. This is Rabbi, passed away in blessed memory. But he said, yeah, like, you got a Jewish soul, bro. You got to convert. You can't just hang out here for the rest of your life. And he says, if you're gonna meet a girl, it's going to be, you're not going to just meet some girl off the street and bring her into all this, Shabbat, the holidays, this is your life, so if you want to go, I mean, you have to go all the way, you have to go all the way. And if we did it here, you will be here for the rest of your life. He said, you got to go out and be great. You got to go out and be great. That's what Yehuda told me. He's like, you got to go out and be great. And even when he said that, I didn't leave then. It was like almost a year later that all these different things pulled me, that friends and whatever, because all I knew, the Kabbalah Center opened up this huge thing in my heart and my mind and my emotional, and my parents and my family was all involved. And so for me, it was like unthinkable leaving the place, and when I hooked up with my friends, I was like, okay, like there's girls that are also like into Kabbalah, like not like older, because the Kabbalah Center was a lot of older people, at least when I was there it was, you had your celebrities, but it was mostly like older people type of thing. And but a lot of it had to do with was being able to have this spiritual technology in a home and to share it with another person, and to share it with the family, like have my own Shabbat and holidays and meals and this type of thing. So I think a lot of it was that, and also I also had a desire to be independent from the Kabbalah Center. Like as much as I was very emotionally and intellectually and spiritually connected, it was still bigger than the Kabbalah Center. You know what I mean? It was still bigger than that. And the people that I knew kind of like created a gap, a bridge for me to kind of like explore that.
So people like us, and I'm going to kind of take it now in our Jew function direction. People like us, we build this, this kind of, this thing radiates, starts to become something, right? And then we have this kind of integration with the world, and then we have to kind of calibrate, because we are in something, but we can't, you can't stay inside that by yourself forever. So then you have some interface with the world, and then you have to calibrate your new self with the world, and then you find yourself here, and then you have to calibrate that whole thing again with the world, because the world, the creator's no shortage of tricks, to keep this thing growing. So when you went now into the Orthodox world, and you had to integrate with this other group of Jews, how was the process? You had this foundation, this many years foundation, maybe it sounds like almost a 10-year process of having a foundation in the inner part of the Torah, let's call it. And then you come to this place where there's a lot of Jews who are mostly coming also with a Jewish soul, but probably a lot of it had to do with what do I study? How do I put on the tefillin? You know, how do I wash my hands? How do I say the bracha? When do I touch? When do I not touch? What can I touch? What can't I touch? So you come into this, now you have to take this thing and integrate it into this bigger Jewish thing. And I'm interested in how you interfaced into the Jewish community, because there's my relationship with God, which is one thing, or my relationship with my Kabbalist friends, for example, which is one thing. But now with Klal Yisrael, like when I have to start integrating with this whole very dynamic thing, like what does that process look and feel like?
Yeah, that was rocky. It was rocky for me. You know, it was rocky for me because on one hand, I knew a lot of like really big concepts, right? Like big concepts. But on another hand, I didn't know anything. You know what I mean? Because there's a whole practical aspect of like opening a siddur and reading it accurately. You know, knowing the real brachot system. You know, being able to, you know, meals by families and this, and then the politics, and then the different types of, you know, ways of expressing Judaism, you know, in the different communities and this. So it was a huge shift. It was a huge shift, and it was very humbling because, you know, when you're over there by the Kabbalah Center, you're all like hyped up and you know everything and you understand out there, but that's not the whole picture, you know. And so
I think it can be the whole picture, but not forever, but not for you. Like I think people can live their whole life there.
Yeah, but just like you can't really manifest that wisdom. You can't go and learn about the Zohar and then go out and eat treif. You know what I'm saying? Like you know what I mean? Like it's like little practical things like that that you see, and it's like, and then you feel also this this yoke is starting to come onto your neck. You know,
right. I started to feel it. Yeah, when you tell the story,
exactly.
like, oh, at some point you had to feel like, what? Like, ooh, this is not the fun I was looking for. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, because sorry.
No, please.
Yeah. So we're very focused, like to get to our tachlis here. Like we're very focused on the unity of the Jewish people as the Leo always. You want to jump in here and tell me I'm going too fast, Leo? I'm jumping to the conclusion.
No. This has been moving fast as it is. I was actually going to ask Mordechai, first of all, just to bring it back to sort of the side topic that always hovers around our talks, which is anti-Semitism. You know, have you felt it?
Yeah, I'm going to push pause then on my train, and we'll
This is a good train. They'll meet in a minute. So I want to ask, you know, have you felt it? Are you feeling it now? Is it alive near you? This whole idea of anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish sentiment. Do you feel it? And the second question would be, you know, what do you think? Where do you think that comes from? What's the root of that? So I'm curious to hear about your experience and your thoughts on that.
You know, the thing is, you know, with anti-Semitism, there's so many different levels to it, you know. But I will say, you know, it's like being able to look at a world from the lenses of being a Jew, and seeing how this world is reacting to you, to your friends, to your community, you know, to your country, you know, and you're like, wait, like this is not real. But you know what? I kind of relate to it because even as African Americans, right? Like you lived in America, you had those experiences. Like they really are painting people like criminals. You know, like if you look at television, you look at the images, you look at this, and they reinforce it in the community. They're indoctrinating, you know, a lot of the Black youth, African American youth, to perceive themselves in the way the images that are being portrayed to them, which leads to prison, and that's a whole business model in itself. So I could kind of, I mean, if you would have asked me outside, I would have said like, yeah, I could understand that. But to see the depth of it, you know, and to see, you know, people that have no stake in the game, right? And you're just like, wait, but this is really like happening, and that's really not true. And you're really saying, like, you know, when we talk about October 7th, like people are really saying genocide, and it's like the last thing Jews or IDF or whoever, guns, nothing, nobody's trying to massacre anybody. They want the Arabs to be successful. And I'm not saying that to be like a pro-Israel advocate. You know what I mean? I'm saying that
I live
it's a
here.
real thing.
I'm sure. I know. I live here. I know the reality.
But to see the world have a completely different view with such hatred and vigor, to me, it's a testament of God. Like this is you're watching God. You're watching Hashem.
So open this up. Open this up. More details. Tell us what you mean by that.
Like meaning that, like, the fact that the whole world, you know, all the things that are going on in the world, all the things that are happening in the world, like you have people honoring the president of Iran who just died. They're honoring him. The UN, the United States is really, this guy is murdering thousands of Iranians. Murdering them, women, children, everything, right? Like, they're honoring him, and then the IDF is literally putting on a clinic in terms of warfare, a precision of going into a dense populated place and targeting the enemy and doing everything in their power to not hit civilians. Like, they're going to be studying this for 100 years from now. They're going to be studying what the IDF is. They're going to use that as a standard, right? And to see that, and to know friends. I have friends that are in the IDF. The friends are in Gaza. Friends that are in all these places. Friends, not like some guy that's friends.
Mordechai, we know that. The question is, and you started to say it, you know, why clearly there's some other forces involved in maintaining this uneven relationship, right? I mean, it's so out of whack that it makes you ask the question. And again, if this was, you know, 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, this has been going on for 3,000 years, this strange relationship between the Jews and the world. So to sit there, you don't even have to be a religious person or believe in anything, just to say, no, well, I think it's a bunch of coincidence. It'd be like, that'd be a little weird. I mean, you know, just statistically speaking, it doesn't add up, right? There's too many things are happening in a certain way over time. Like, okay, what's the pattern? That's what we've been studying. So I'm asking you, from your point of view, from the way you feel about it, why do you think there's this this unexplained hatred of the Jew, which we know, we talked about, which dresses itself in different garments, right? It could be the religious card, the racial card, the political card. It doesn't matter. Those are just dresses. Strip the dresses away. Take that, you know, all those decorations. You're left with an irrational hatred towards the Jew. Where does it come from? Why is it there? And what can we do about it?
The one question, why is it there? It's a proof that the Jewish soul lives in a completely different reality than the rest of the world, right? We're living in the same space, but we're living in a completely different reality. Like, we're watching two different movies, right? On the same TV screen, right? And I believe that it's a form of God's influence. This is the same way that trees grow in the spring and the sun rises and sets, this whole thing. That same system of creation is the same system that creates this kind of like border between the logic and the thinking process of the Jewish people and the other, say, 70 nations, right? It's part of creation that is built that way. And unfortunately, what strengthens it is our behavior, right? And our behavior. Before we were talking earlier, you made a great point about this idea that the closer we become, the more the universe is in this relaxed state, and the more that we're separate, the more that everything around us becomes adverse, right? And the bigger the separation, the more that adverse response from nature, which includes human beings, whatever. And it's unexplainable, like that. This actually this is like a real thing.
Let's take what you just said, that the more close we come, the more relaxed the system becomes.
Yeah.
Have you seen any ways for us to
To come closer.
To come closer? Have you? Yeah. Have you?
Practical.
Can you share with us like something, some ways? Because we find that the first thing we need to do is educate. We just need to explain the system to people. But clearly, you get the picture. So we don't. There's no like where we share that whole thing. The next thing is okay. So I agree. Now, what should I do? You know. So how can we? I mean, we also feel that we have some kind of method for it, but from your perspective, from your life, from all your connections and everything you've experienced and your background, like how do you can you talk about maybe some ways that we can get closer?
So for me, I would say like, I've had a lot of a big transformation, even in my own spirituality being in Israel, right? As you know, when I first came to Israel, I immediately went into the yeshiva system. I was living in Meir Sharim for 4.5 years. I was at Or Samek, the whole thing, which is a very Litvish place and very, Haredi. And I went to other places and learned that were also very Haredi and these types of things. And so it was beautiful, beautiful community, friendships, everything. But the perspective on the other Jew that's not the same way was something that later became problematic for me.
Jew function is really it's a desperate attempt to change something about the rise in anti-Semitism that doesn't seem to go away, and looking at history usually ends with something terrible before we reach relative quiet again. But we don't want to reach something terrible. We want to do it now. So that's why we're doing this podcast. And if you like this, also consider leaving a small contribution on our Patreon channel. Right, we both have day jobs, by the way, so we're not hoping to make money from this. We're hoping to see some change of heart.
Any funds are used to get this out there, to get this to people. We consider this the same way you go out every day to get money to feed your family, put a roof over your head. This is also critically important to our future, to our safety, to a good world, not only for Jews, but for everyone.
Well, this is the Jew function, and let's get back to our guest.
And one of the things that I have done in my own personal growth, and this is not something that's like really accepted mainstream, but I'm just being honest about my journey, is that I met a rabbi here, a group of rabbis that are really into going to the outskirts of the Temple Mount, right? And I would just say for me, when I've been going, like it's been probably over like close to a year now, maybe even a little bit longer. Not all the time. I go when I feel like I have the strength for it or whatnot. But for me, when I go up to the base of Mikdash, when I go up to the Temple Mount, not to the places that we're forbidden to go. I'm saying on the outskirts. But when I connect to God on that level, and because they we're not supposed to pray, but sometimes people turn the other way and let us do certain feel up there. It's crazy. I'm saying it's wild up there. But for me, when I come down from there, all this like you're this keeper, that keeper, you speak this way, you dress this way, all these things, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And we're not focused on that connection. We're still living in the place of Galut, where it's like, okay, this synagogue and that place is forget about all that. The focus should be on the base of Mikdash. It should be focused on connecting to that light, and all this separation that we have amongst each other that's perpetuated by the system, right, is holding us back and creating darkness, right? It doesn't matter what religious level. Are you going to say something on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I wrote something down about the first temple that I think Nebuchadnezzar said something. Hold on, I actually just was reading something and just pinned it here. Hold on. He said, Nebuchadnezzar conquered Israel and destroyed the first temple because the leaders of Israel spoke to each other with daggers in their tongues. Even more emphatically, our sages attributed the second destruction of the second temple to sinat chinam, unfounded hatred. So it's like the temple can stand when the people are united, and the temple is like in that state where we can unite all of those differences, then the temple can stand. In the state where we can't unite and there's all this division between us, then the temple is is broken. So then the question is, how can we unite all? Because the thing about the Jews is we're not the same, we're not homogenous. So all of these different things need to be somehow held together if they can. So then we have something called the temple. Probably the next one is something that'll be built in our hearts. But so you're talking about that degree of the temple.
I think the question is, what's the first step that people can do? Because obviously not everybody's going to feel that calling and going to become a rabbi.
Yeah.
Clearly, right? Not everybody's going to go study at a yeshiva, as you said. And even those who study, they're
not going to climb to the Temple Mount.
Right. And then someone may study at this yeshiva, but not that yeshiva. And someone, will do the X and that Y. And we know how that works. And we've asked many people. We ask everyone who come on this show, what's the first step? How do you do it? Like, how do you start to rebuild those bridges, rekindle that love that is not dependent on any sort of external sign or particular opinion, but is just devoid of those things? We say when we read about these things from Baal Sulam, we talk about Beit HaMikdash, right? Beit as a place, as really, it's another word for desire. And Mikdash, when something is holy, it just means that it's separate. That's what makes it holy. It's not like it's divine, or it's just separate. Meaning, you said there's all these ideas and opinions and desires and egoistic, you pull this way and that way. And then there's this thing which we're separating from all the rest. And that thing, we want to make it special. Like when you marry someone, right? You are Harayat Mekudeshet, right? You are holy to me, right? Meaning you are separate from, I chose you, I made you special from everyone else, right? That's really the meaning of holy. There's nothing holy. There's the rocks are not holy. There's nothing holy in that. It's the decision to separate something. So how can we at least agree that we want to have something that is holy, that is above all the conditions of this world?
So I think we need a new. I think we need to re-educate society, and I think that first step is going through the process of evaluating what my core desire is. Like you just said, the ratzon. Like what makes me unique? What is it that my soul wants to contribute to the world, right? Like sometimes you see kids, you ask a kid like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? This kid's like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a basketball player, I want to be an astronaut, whatever. That sense of uniqueness is already corrupted, right? Because now they're projecting, who they are on these like external filaments that they heard the world say, right? And so that aspect of going back in time,
what would be uncorrupted? What would a kid say that would be uncorrupted?
Yeah, the kid being uncorrupted would be able to express itself without putting it into a mechanism of commerce or a mechanism of something that already it's like you have kids, they make a painting, right? You say give them crayons or paintbrush and you tell them to paint something, and then so we judge how good the painting is or isn't because we're comparing it to other paintings, or we're comparing it to something that objective that they were supposed to paint, like an orange or the sky or whatever. But imagine if there was no grading system and it was a frame of expression, and the journey after that expression was manifest is to understand it, right? And not try to necessarily put it in connection with these pre-existing structures and standards and infrastructure, and starting to realize the self from this kind of like unadulterated state where it's just about like, I don't have to quantify why I feel this way. I don't have to justify why I want to express myself. However, there is a way to still interact within the collective and still have this freedom, right? Because I want to also give someone else the space to live in that way as well, right? And readjusting how we interact with each other from a place of freedom in the removal of secular definitions.
I'm trying to think how do you bring that? I have a friend who's a member of Knesset now, for example, just happens to be in the Knesset, is in the Likud party, but the state of the nation is so terrible that it's really hard for even the government can do anything. Like, it can't even, like, all right, let's review education, let's change this, let's change. They're not even dealing with that. They're like in survival mode and war mode, and like I'm how do we give us some hope, Rabbi?
I don't think it starts. I think it doesn't start. One of the things is, like, when I look at my journey, in a way, I kind of compare it to Jethro in a way, right? Because the Torah teaches that, he tried a lot of different avodah zaras, right? He was into all different types of stuff. And it's not saying that I was ever into conscious avodah zara, but even when I was in the entertainment business, it was always coming from a place of wanting to create things that made changes and would make people think. And then once you get these ideas out, it would create this ripple effect, and the truth will be known, right? Or the world will shift into a different direction. And then I saw that, like, as much as you could create innovative things, I was very focused on working with kids in the inner city, in social media. This is years ago when it was like a new thing. And then that was kind of like seeing how once the trend died, those kids just got sucked back into the same system, right? And that was kind of a motivation for me to want to get into politics, right? And one of the things that when I ran for Congress in 2016, what the thing that I ran for, with my platform, was the Social Media Business Enhancement Act. That was the whole thing. And I was going to go and convince the federal government to release money for these kids to be able to receive monies to grow their social media networks and invest in that whole thing, blah, 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 this whole thing. And so, nice idea, right? But when I came to yeshiva after I lost, it was destroyed as a Republican in Los Angeles. But like when I came to yeshiva, I realized that everything that I was dealing with was the effect, right? The effect. Mm-hmm. The cause is consciousness, right? And so now the work, because everything we're learning about is from a frame of thought consciousness, right? The Gemara itself is working from that frame, is building out from how Rav and Abaya see the world, right? Like, it's their consciousness, and we're building into halacha. We're building.
Some would say it's your consciousness. There's no one else but you.
Yeah. I'm applying my consciousness to this filter called Rabbi Kiva, right?
Right.
Or Rabbi Shimon,
construct, right? Yeah.
100%. And so we're working on that. We're working on that consciousness, right? And so I think, when we talk about how to implement it, I think it's important to start in the home. I think it starts with, couples, wanting to work on their consciousness, and wanting to get to this place of uniqueness, this place of innocence, this place of vulnerability, but with strength, but with power, with placement, right? And working on that. It's work.
Mordechai,
it's a thing.
How many are like you in your community?
0.00001.
I had a very different.
I'm asking. No, seriously. I'm asking.
No, he has a different view. Hold on. I think he's an optimist. Hold on, let's hear him.
No, I would just say, like, I just think I take into account that for whatever reason, I went through this process that involved a lot of different teachers and a lot of different experiences that built, who I am today, right? So there's pieces that I connect to with everybody, you know what I mean? But to expect to have a group of friends or to have a group of people that have the total expression that I have, that's part of what we don't want, I think, right?
Yeah. I think probably a similar ratio of like Jews to the nations, even within the nation, because we look at Israel actually as a microcosm of all of humanity. Inside, Yehuda Ashлаг's son writes all the time. He's like, there's many interpretations in the literal, but in the work, it's all inside of one person. Like in the spiritual work, the whole Torah is taking place inside of one person, all the characters, everything, and that probably that ratio of Israel to the nations is probably similar within Israel. There's a group who also is like very Yashar Kel, like who can hold all of the world and hold all of the opinions and hold all of those things. So maybe according to what you're saying, it just and since it comes from the consciousness, if you hit that root level, if all those other things are the externality, so if we can just hit that root level with just enough quantity and quality, probably mostly quality, but I think we need some quantity also. So that's probably enough to start rippling through the whole system.
Yeah. Relationships. Yeah. It's all about relationship, working through relationships. I've been married for a couple years now, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And it's a lot of, as we say, mavatling, the ego, bittling, these things, but not from the place of subservience, but from the standpoint of Hashem is challenging you in a specific way to receive more light.
You're saying nullification is what just for those who don't understand Hebrew, you mean lowering yourself.
Well, I mean, not lowering myself, not in that way, but being able to, like, it's almost like if you could say, like, you know what, this computer chip may not be wrong, but I'm going to take it out of my head and I'm going to put another computer chip in my head so I could be the most functional in this moment, right? And being able to have that power. One of the most difficult things, I just wrote this small like blog thing on social media about, the halakot of how to take off your clothes and put your clothes on, right? And it sounds like a trivial thing, like if you want to put your clothes on, you start with the right? If you put on your shirt, your jacket, you put your right hand in first and then the left hand, right? And if you take it off, right, you start with the left and then you pull off with the right second, right? Same thing by the shoes, right? But the difference is when you tie your shoes, you start with the left and then you do it the right type of a thing, and they connect it to wrapping tefillin. But the point is saying that the being able to be that conscious all the time when you take off your jacket to put your jacket, it's mind-blowing. Like you just do it automatically, robotically. You know what I'm saying? But there's so many other things that we do robotically in life that we're just completely unconscious of, and we do, and being able to work and refine ourselves to get to that point. Like I take off clothes now, and I'm like thinking, like, how did I do it? Not that I'm trying to like go, drive myself crazy. It's just saying the point is saying that focusing on that specific halakha could really help a person from impulsiveness. Right.
But the question is, the question is, can we apply even a fraction of that consciousness to thinking about another person's needs and feelings, right? I think that's the toughest thing. I mean, because to be all wrapped in myself and what I'm doing, that's one thing. But as you said, eventually, if it doesn't come out into the relationship, then who are you? Where are you? Right? What are you doing?
I mean, the whole book of Bereshit is all about relationships.
I think everything is relationships. There's just
I think we need to speak another time. I think we're barely even getting to know each other, and there's a lot more that we can help each other with.
Mordechai, before we close, it's I think I hope that Mordechai will have more time for us. Sure. I want you. I have a quote in the chat that I put in by Rav Kook. If you can read it out loud, that would be great. And then if you if you can think of something, if you know, imagine that all the Jewish people in the world are listening to you, and you know what would you tell them as we close this great talk? So start with a quote, and then the mic is yours.
Yeah. Hold on, I just flip it upside down.
Okay.
Okay. So only when the Torah is, so I can't. Was this? Only when Torah is in Israel will be complete with peace, faithfulness, love, come and pure feeling of recognizing the brotherhood between people will develop. When that develops, it is completed within us a degree that merits being a role model to many. The nations will recognize it, and the blessings of peace will begin and dwell in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. So you want me to respond to Rav Cook?
Well, you have to respond to him. It's you know, I just thought it was a nice little,
Yeah.
you know, a nice little, you know,
Bring a
crown.
little like we always try and bring a source before
Yeah.
we close. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's not just our
Rav,
ideas. You know, we have like wiser and wiser people before us who are saying those things. So if
yeah.
you have the ear of every Jewish person right now, everyone, all kinds, all colors, all creeds, all, you know, they're all listening to you. What would you tell them?
I would say I would say to figure out how they can express the aspect of God that exists within them in their everyday life. Like that, the first acknowledge that they have an aspect of God within them, and figure out how they can express it in their everyday life, and to accept that the way that they're going to do it is going to be different than anyone else that ever has existed before or ever will exist, and to own that autonomy and to feel safe with it, but to be focused on that mission on a daily basis, and to go deeper and deeper into that expression of the internal God, every day.
And just as an additional note, what if I'm not ready to believe in God? I'm a Jew. I'm with the Jews, but I'm not necessarily. I'm not too big on the God thing. What what advice do you have for me?
Okay, fine. So I'll use science then, right? So utilize the different methodologies of creating unity within yourself, like different parts of yourself, parts of your history, your past, everything. Create a unity in yourself, meaning that there is no good, there is no bad. This is who I am. And also create a unity with nature, also create a unity with your fellow man, and let that vibrational effect create a force field of protection, and a force field of love, and allow that to be your safe space.
Beautiful. Rabbi Mordechai Yosef ben Avraham, thank you so much for.
We need to do another panel soon.
Yeah. We need to do a lot of things.
We need to do a lot of things, but we've been meeting some gems in the Jewish community recently, and what's hard to do, what we really set out to do, is to try and find a bunch of Jews with different opinions, because we're so into this Jewish unity thing that we want to see if we can find a common denominator. Like, okay, fine, you're left, you're right, you're this, but can we find something? But recently, I don't know what's happening in the last few weeks, like everyone who comes, Leo and I are just just basking in the greatness of the, it's starting to just blossom. We find it's just like blossoming I maybe just luck the people we're talking to, but
something is happening. I think
something's happening.
As we said, you know, all these blows on the left, on the right, they're gradually
The words that are coming out of people's mouths, it's like it's what we need to hear. You don't have people in the world who are just, I don't hear. I'm listening to podcasts wherever I can and looking around and trying to find people. I don't hear these tender, practical, connecting conversations like this. I hope they are going on. Maybe they are. Someone wants to tell me wrong, but I'm.
But it also, I just want to just acknowledge that today was right before we started the podcast, we were coming out of Pesach Sheni,
right,
and that's like a huge opening in the cosmos of just renewal, another injection, and then now we're in the 15th of ER, which is the full moon, and that's a big time amount of like healing light that's coming down. So we're healing, right? We came in this world ultimately to heal, and all these conversations and everything that we're doing, should come from that place of not healing from the standpoint of injury, but from the standpoint of, like you were saying in the beginning, bringing those collective pieces and unifying them and seeing a reality in that way and see where it gets us.
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Mordechai ben Yosef. I'm sorry,
Mordechai Yosef ben Avraham.
Rabbi Mordechai Yosef ben Avraham. Sorry, my bad. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us. It was so, I don't know what's the word. Tender, yes, so tender and uplifting. I wish you all the best to continue to spread all this light that you're already spreading.
You guys as well.
Put a big wave behind your light, and then you'll be part of our circle now, so you have more.
Exactly. And I would love to hear more, because I know you guys got great ideas that I could learn from, and also like add that to my Rolodex when I'm out pumping ideas out in the world. Great.
What I mean? So we invite everyone to learn more. What we recommend everyone do is, go check the first 20 episodes of the podcast. It lines up the entire Jewish history, the timeline, and shows all those historic patterns that we're talking about. Yeah, it's beautifully produced. It's great if you have long drives or anything. I mean, every episode is like half an hour, 40 minutes, and it's really well produced. Music, soundtrack. You're in the moment. You're with Abraham, then you're with the temple, and then the Middle Ages, the Inquisition. Like we go through all the the whole thing. So I encourage everyone to do it, and then we also have a learning experience on our website on TheJewFunction.com, which you can go in and see like how science and history
nice.
come together, and they all point to this, again, same ideas from different direction. We again encourage everyone to just interact with the material, with the people, with the talks. There's a lot to digest and to spread, and it's very easy. The Jew Function everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Please follow us and subscribe, and let's be friends. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you. Bye bye.